Beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. Believe. There is good out there. We oppose deception. Conduit closing. From Chief of Operations to all governments, militaries and citizens of Earth. Subject: the Global Galactic League of Nations Declaration of Independence from the Interplanetary Conglomerate and Associated Earth Governments. This is an official SSP Alliance release. To combat counterintelligence campaigns, we are releasing a series of briefings straight from our highest-ranking officers without intermediaries. We strongly recommend that you disregard information that is not coming directly from us. The disclosures we have brought forward have been compromised. Fake secret space program veterans, super soldier imposters, and ET contactees have released considerable misinformation. To keep humanity from fighting for freedom, with a false sense of security, they are peddling the narrative that the Mars colonies, Moon, and Antarctica bases have been liberated from the gray alien and reptilian forces. We described the Dark Fleet and its operations with the Draco reptilians in our last briefing. Next, we will discuss the Global Galactic League of Nations, GGLN, Declaration of Independence from the Interplanetary Conglomerate, ICCC, and Associated Earth Governments. The GGLN, first mentioned by Good in August 2015, is a NATO-like program consisting of representatives from most countries on Earth. Its actual name is withheld for operational security. After the Apollo missions to the Moon, the US government's team of scientists and politicians approached every nation with geological proof about the upcoming cyclical solar event that would destroy our civilization and cause the extinction of the human race. They asked the government of every nation to contribute 1% of their gross domestic product to the Preservation of Species program created by GGLN. This program served the purpose of creating colonies in other star systems to ensure the preservation of humanity. In turn, the participating nations had to keep their knowledge of the solar event and advanced space program colonies a secret. A few days after the reconnaissance delegation mission on Mars, Good and Gonzalez attended a conference call on board of Mayan craft between the SSP Alliance liaisons and two former GGLN leaders. They were introduced to Raymond, Director of Science and Technology Development, and Anya, Director of Colonial Security. Both were Caucasian, in their late 50s or early 60s, and dressed in dark blue jumpsuits, without military designation patches. Both served the GGLN in one of the most remote colony outposts at the edge of our galaxy. Anya briefly described the GGLN history and the hardships participants encountered on various star systems while establishing colonies under the Preservation of Species mandate. Over decades of development, the cities and the population in these star systems grew steadily and closely mirrored Earth's infrastructure. Anya explained that the ICC gave the GGLN advanced technologies, which GGLN further developed. They were on the verge of breakthroughs that would have brought humans to the same level of technological development as some of the most advanced extraterrestrial civilizations in our galaxy. The GGLN science and technology groups reported their breakthroughs to their home nations through the ICC communications network. At one point, one of the ICC leaders introduced them to a new group of extraterrestrials who would assist in the final development of these exciting new technologies. This new group of ETs, members of the Galactic Federation, was engaged in intergalactic trade with the ICC and advised the ICC on technological development. They also served as liaisons during diplomatic introductions and facilitated hundreds of civilizations entering into ICC trade deals. Anya stated that, when the first delegation with 28 members of this galactic federation arrived, the inhabitants of Anya's remote colony were excited and greeted them with a festival. There were 18 females and 10 males, who appeared to be under 35 or 40 years of age. The colony's leaders gave them a building complex for housing and workspace. The GGLN worked with these Galactic Federation members to develop advanced technologies. Anya said that this Federation group immediately discouraged the GGLN from further developing technologies by offering their civilizations already developed technologies. The Federation scientists began to share knowledge of utilizing artificial intelligence, a subspace communication system, and technological implants in their bodies to conquer disease and aging. Their technologies allowed them to be constantly connected and work in a virtual reality where their minds work together. This way, they were able to develop technologies at an incredible rate, making thousand-year leaps in technology and advancing their civilization rapidly in a short time. The GGLN began to develop, test, and implement the Federation's technologies. During this time, the Federation members started developing physical relationships with men and women from the GGLN colony. Anya explained that she was seduced by the Federation commander, who increasingly influenced her decision-making process as the relationship developed. She found herself making out-of-character decisions, and even though she was aware, she could not resist. With the Federation's help, it took GGLN a year to fully develop and test nanites and brain implants. Soon after, the GGLN colony was required to receive the implants, which were impossible to remove. Although GGLN was aware of the Orion Group's AI God threat, the Federation convinced them that the technology was safe and that the AI God could not gain access. Around the same time, Anya found out that the Federation commander secretly had relationships with other women in the GGLN colony. After a few unsuccessful attempts, she broke into the Galactic Federation's advanced security system, utilizing one of the prototype chips the Federation gave to the GGLN. As the head of security, she started to monitor the Federation's commander and their communications closely. Information Anya learned sent chills down her spine. She witnessed a meeting between the Federation commander and a tall gray, discussing the progress of their joint mission. The tall gray urged the commander to expedite human assimilation into the Empire due to the danger of advancing human technologies, negatively impacting the Orion Group and the AI God's plan. Anya was horrified after realizing the Federation's hidden agenda and her role in ordering most GGLN security staff to accept implants. She received the implant, which takes 90 days to bond to neurons and integrate into thought patterns. Anya was halfway through the process. Anya said she panicked. She saved the witnessed communication and backed up all GGLN systems data collected on the Federation members since their arrival. Anya attempted to talk to and show evidence to her security staff and others in leadership positions, but it was too late. They got agitated and refused to look at the evidence. The trusted security team she managed for nearly 2 decades had already fallen under the influence of the Orion Group and the AI God. The only person willing to listen to her was Raymond, the engineer in charge of the colony's efforts to reverse engineer the Federation technologies. He was one of the few individuals who had not accepted the implant, which allowed him to witness the behavioral change in those with implants. Anya and Raymond acted quickly to escape by stealing a long-range vessel with approximately a dozen trusted family members and friends to escape from the compromised colony. They headed to a GGLN military outpost in another solar system where Anya's cousin was stationed. Once they arrived, her cousin copied the evidence and uploaded it to the military intelligence mainframe connected to the quantum-correlated communication devices. These devices use quantum entanglement, making the data impossible to intercept or decrypt. Her cousin helped Anya's small group of refugees replenish their supplies. He gave them the downloaded information from the military mainframe regarding Sigmund's disclosures of the Dark Fleet operations and the Secret Space Program Alliance, SSP Alliance. Anya and her crew used that information to attempt to track down the SSP Alliance for assistance. They used stealth to travel and stayed off the communications network to avoid detection. They managed to avoid detection for several months when a GGLN military cruiser arrived in the small solar system where they were hiding. The cruiser flew directly to the moon of a gas giant, where the SSP Alliance was in orbit, and opened communication channels. Anya's crew immediately began purging computer systems and destroying physical evidence, as there was no chance of escaping capture. Anya opened communications with the GGLN military cruiser to buy the crew time, and was entirely caught off guard by what happened next. She heard an individual introduce himself as the commander of the Wandering Star, the new flagship of the Free Colonies. He explained that Anya's evidence and information, disseminated with the help of her cousin, made it through the entire GGLN military network. The GGLN military determined that dozens of colonies were under the control of the ORION group through their Federation allies. Once they saw the evidence, the GGLN colonies, which were not compromised, became enraged. They called for the expulsion of the Federation allies and returned to developing the ICCC breakthrough technologies. The compromised colonies refused, so the GGLN military contacted the ICCC for assistance. The ICCC ordered the GGLN military to stand down and continue developing the implant technologies and be prepared to accept the implant technology as soon as it was ready for mass deployment. The ICCC ordered the GGLN military to enforce the implant mandate on all GGLN participants. When the GGLN military brought these orders to the colony leaders, 93 of them came together and declared independence from the ICCC and all Earth governments. The GGLN military then pledged allegiance to the new governments of these colonies and was sent out to look for Anya's group and contact the SSP Alliance. Once we heard about the GGLN program's complete collapse, they made contact with us, the SSP Alliance Council. Immediately after, a team of Mayans boarded the Wandering Star and helped the GGLN military develop a method of removing the implants without the procedure being fatal. On the way back to one of the colonies, while on board the Wandering Star, the SSP Alliance informed the GGLN military of an official agreement with Free Colonies to defeat the ORION group and AI agenda. The SSP Alliance also brought them the news of the upcoming Super Federation trials and the new Guardians and Zulu, placing the ICCC and Super Federation on notice. By this point, the GGLN military had already engaged several times in firefights, with reptilian and dark fleet vessels harassing other planets. The GGLN had no prior knowledge of the Guardians or beings, genetically almost identical to humans, inhabiting our local star cluster. At the end of this briefing, the Free Colonies offered the SSP Alliance their assets to help free their homeworld, a prison planet called Earth. The GGLN decided to send support to our solar system with help from Zulu. The Zulu leadership, consisting of over 100 elder women, first met the GGLN assets on the Zulu planet. The Zulu planet is the local confederation of planets headquarters for over 50 extraterrestrial groups from our local star clusters. Afterward, the Zulu leadership facilitated the GGLN assets' introduction to the local confederation of planets. The commander said that the SSP Alliance was told that the Wandering Star will become the flagship of the human-led fleet that will work with the SSP Alliance and elements of the Earth Alliance remaining after its near collapse in 2020. Together, they will coordinate and protect the entry into our solar system. Due to operational security, the information shared with us was limited. As the resistance on this planet, we need to encourage the world's population to get out en masse to make our voices heard. This will provide the Earth Alliance with the leverage they need to defeat the ORION group. Once we all rise simultaneously and refuse to feed the ORION group with our pain and suffering, their influence will die within days as they go into loose withdrawals. At this point in history, humanity will free itself after learning the karmic lessons of its enslavement and choosing never to repeat those mistakes. In our next and final briefing, we will describe the ICCC awakening old gods from stasis chambers in Antarctica. Be patient, be strong. We are in this together.
This is Corey Good, and this has been an official Secret Space Program Alliance update.
For more updates, go to ascensionworks.tv.